The alien fleet hovered silently above the dense, uncharted jungle of a distant world, the advanced ships casting shadows over the treetops as they made their descent. The sleek vessels, their designs far more refined than anything humanity had ever conceived, exuded an aura of technological superiority. The aliens on board were a well-trained group, seasoned explorers and conquerors of countless worlds, armed with cloaking devices, weapons of unimaginable power, and a deep belief in their superiority. They were used to the idea that no creature could stand in their way. This mission, they believed, would be no different. Their target was a creature that had long piqued the interest of the Galactic Council. Rumors of its existence had circulated for years, stories whispered between galactic travelers. An apex predator, they had been told, capable of overwhelming anything that crossed its path. A beast so powerful that no other species could challenge its rule on this alien world. The Council had sent these aliens to capture it, to study it, to understand its strengths, and perhaps harness it for their own needs. It would be another trophy for their growing list of conquests. The mission was clear: secure the creature alive, study it, and return to report. But as the alien fleet landed on the planet's surface, something felt off. The air was thick with the scent of wet earth, and the dense jungle seemed to stretch for miles. There were no signs of other life nearby, just the occasional rustle of leaves or a distant howl. It was eerily quiet, and the aliens couldn't shake the sense that they were being watched. Still, they pressed on, their senses heightened, their weapons ready. The ground beneath their feet suddenly trembled. The alien soldiers froze, their senses sharpened. What was that? The noise grew louder, and the earth continued to shake with each passing second. Then, out of the foliage, a massive form emerged. At first, it was nothing but a blur, a shadow among the trees, but as it drew closer, the full scale of the creature became clear. It was enormous, taller than any building the aliens had ever seen. Its skin was covered in thick, armored plating that glimmered under the faint light filtering through the canopy. It was a massive, terrifying predator, its claws longer than the height of an average alien soldier, its teeth sharp enough to tear through metal. A creature that could flatten anything in its path. This was the apex predator they had come to capture. But there was one thing that immediately threw them off. The creature wasn't attacking. It wasn't growling or lunging at them like a wild animal should. Instead, it was sitting on the ground, calmly, its head tilted as it watched something in front of it. And what was more shocking, the thing it was watching was a human. A single human soldier stood in front of the creature, unarmed, completely at ease. His posture was relaxed, his hands gently reaching out to stroke the massive creature's snout. The apex predator, a being capable of obliterating entire armies, simply sat there, its massive form still, eyes half closed in what could only be described as contentment. The human was petting it, as if it were some kind of domesticated animal. The aliens stared in disbelief, their minds racing. How could this be? How could a mere human, a species they had long dismissed as weak and primitive, have tamed such a beast? This was no ordinary human. The aliens had heard stories of humans being resilient and resourceful, but this was beyond anything they had anticipated. How could this insignificant being, whose technology barely compared to their own, be in such a position of power? The human didn't even look at them. He seemed to be completely unaware of their presence, or perhaps he just didn't care. His hand continued to move gently across the creature's enormous head, a soft, rhythmic motion that only seemed to calm the beast even further. The aliens had arrived on this planet with the belief that they were the dominant force in the galaxy, that no creature or civilization could rival their technological might. But what they were witnessing here defied all logic. The most feared creature on this planet, the apex predator, was now sitting docile at the feet of a human. It was as if the laws of nature had been rewritten before their very eyes. One of the soldiers stepped forward, his voice a mix of awe and confusion. How How is this possible? What kind of power does this human possess? Another soldier, one of the commanders, remained silent for a long moment, his mind racing. The human was still unaware of their presence, and the creature remained at his side, completely calm. The tension was thick in the air as the aliens tried to make sense of what they were seeing. It didn't make sense, but there was no time for second-guessing. The mission was still the same: capture the creature and return. Yet now, the creature's tamer was an unexpected part of the equation. The human, finally noticing the alien presence, turned his gaze toward them. His eyes, sharp and calculating, met theirs. There was no fear, no hesitation, just a quiet confidence. "You've come for the beast, haven't you?" The human's voice was calm, almost as if he was speaking to old friends. "Well, I suggest you think carefully before trying to take him from me." The aliens exchanged glances, still trying to comprehend what they were seeing. The idea that a human could control such a beast, tame it, and be so at ease with it, it was unsettling. For the first time in their lives, they began to question the superiority they had always believed in. What were they up against? Could they defeat a species that had formed such an unexpected bond with one of the galaxy's most dangerous creatures? The ground shook again, but this time, it wasn't just the predator moving. The tension in the air was palpable. The soldiers readied their weapons, unsure of what would happen next. But the human wasn't worried. He just stood there, his predator beside him, as calm as ever. This was the moment the aliens realized they were no longer the hunters. They were the prey. The human's confidence, the creature's loyalty, and the chilling realization that they had underestimated humanity set the stage for what was about to unfold. What had started as a simple mission to capture a creature had turned into something far more dangerous, something no one had anticipated. And this was just the beginning. The silence between the human soldier, Captain Ryan, and the group of aliens felt almost unbearable. The massive creature beside him sat still, its glowing eyes never leaving the aliens. The tension in the air was thick, the unknown hanging between them like a storm cloud ready to burst. The aliens, still in shock from the earlier encounter, couldn't tear their eyes away from the human and the beast that seemed to trust him completely. Finally, it was Ryan who broke the silence. His voice was calm but firm, cutting through the stillness of the jungle. "You want to know how I ended up here, don't you?" he asked, his eyes locking onto the leader of the alien group. The alien nodded, a mixture of curiosity and skepticism written across his face. Ryan smiled wryly. "I'm sure you've got a lot of questions, so let me tell you a story." The sound of the jungle faded into the background as Ryan began to speak. The aliens listened intently, their weapons still at the ready but their attention focused solely on the human in front of them. Ryan's story was unlike anything they had ever heard, a tale that would slowly unravel their assumptions about humanity. "Years ago," Ryan started, his voice low, "I was stranded here, on this planet. It wasn't supposed to happen. We were just a part of a routine mission, exploring a new world. But the ship was damaged. The crash left me alone in the middle of a hostile jungle, with nothing but the clothes on my back." His eyes wandered for a moment as if reliving those memories, the pain of those days still fresh in his mind. "I had no choice but to survive," Ryan continued, his voice becoming more intense. "I didn't know the planet. I didn't know the creatures. All I had was my training, my instincts, and the will to live. The first day I was here, I thought I was done for. I came face to face with the creature you call the apex predator." The aliens stiffened at the mention of the beast. They had heard rumors, stories of its terrifying power. It was a creature that had brought fear to even the most advanced species in the galaxy. But hearing the human speak so casually about it made them uneasy. Ryan's gaze shifted to the ground, as if seeing the events unfold before his eyes. "At first, it was like any other predator," he said. "It attacked without warning. Its teeth were like knives, and its claws could tear through steel. I fought it off, barely, but it was stronger than anything I had ever faced. I could have died that day, but something in me just wouldn't let go. I kept fighting, kept thinking. I knew I had to survive. The aliens exchanged glances, their skepticism turning into a quiet, growing respect. Here was a human who had faced the apex predator head-on and survived, something no alien, no matter how powerful, could claim to have done. Ryan's survival wasn't just a matter of luck. It was the result of pure willpower and quick thinking. But Ryan continued, his voice softer now. It wasn't just about fighting the beast. It was about understanding it. I didn't kill it. I could have. But I realized something in that moment. I wasn't just fighting to survive. I was fighting to learn, to understand. He paused for a moment, his eyes meeting the aliens once again. I survived because I knew that in the wild, you either adapt or you perish. The aliens didn't respond right away. They were still processing his words. They had never encountered a species so driven, so capable of learning and adapting under pressure. To them, humans were a species that had barely mastered basic space travel, let alone survival on a planet like this one. But here, standing before them, was proof that humanity was much more than they had given credit for. Ryan's story continued as he spoke of his time on the planet. Days turned into weeks, and in those weeks, the creature and we became partners. I didn't tame it, not in the way you might think. I earned its trust. We fought together, hunted together, and survived together. The creature, as if understanding Ryan's words, made a low rumbling noise, its massive head tilting as it stared at the human with an almost affectionate gaze. The aliens could hardly believe what they were seeing. A human, alone on a hostile world, had formed a bond with the galaxy's deadliest predator. It was as if the rules of nature had been bent, reshaped by this one human's resilience and determination. Ryan smiled faintly, though there was sadness in his eyes. But it wasn't just the creature that helped me survive. The jungle itself had its own challenges: wild animals, dangerous terrain, harsh weather. But I learned to adapt. I made tools. I learned the language of the jungle, how to use its resources. I was no longer just a human trying to survive. I was part of the world. I became something else. The aliens stood in stunned silence, their previous assumptions about humanity shattering with every word Ryan spoke. They had thought of humans as weak, incapable of competing with advanced species like themselves. But here was a human who had not only survived, but had thrived in an environment where even the most advanced alien would have been lost. Ryan wasn't just surviving. He was adapting. He was learning. He was becoming something the aliens couldn't comprehend. What you see before you, Ryan said, his voice growing stronger, is a man who has learned to survive. A man who has adapted to a world where everything is trying to kill him. A man who has learned that it's not about how strong you are. It's about how you think, how you adapt. And that, he added with a smile, is what makes humanity dangerous. The aliens were quiet, each of them processing Ryan's story in their own way. Their worldview was being appended, and the realization was starting to settle in. Humans were not weak. They were survivors. They were resilient. They were a species that could adapt to any challenge thrown their way, no matter how impossible it seemed. As the last words hung in the air, the tension was palpable. Ryan's story had built the suspense even further, painting a picture of a human who had not only faced the odds but had beaten them. The aliens had come here to capture a creature, but what they had found instead was a human who had conquered the impossible, and in doing so, had proven that the real power wasn't in advanced technology, but in the will to survive, to fight, and to adapt. And now, as the aliens stood before him, the question in their minds was clear. What other surprises did humanity have in store for them? The air was thick with tension as the alien commander stepped forward, his eyes locked onto Captain Ryan. The creature at Ryan's side, a massive beast of pure muscle and sharp claws, stood still but alert, sensing the imminent conflict. Ryan met the commander's gaze with calm confidence, his hand resting lightly on the predator's fur. He had faced worse, survived worse, and if anything, he was about to prove that humanity was anything but weak. The alien commander, tall and imposing with a sleek black uniform adorned with strange symbols, spoke in a tone of icy authority. "You claim to have tamed the apex predator," he said, his voice cold and condescending. "You claim humanity is capable of more than we've been led to believe, but words are meaningless in battle. Prove it." Ryan's eyes narrowed, the challenge clear in the commander's words. The alien didn't just doubt his strength. He questioned humanity itself. The subtle but sharp edge of the alien's tone made it clear that he wasn't merely seeking a fight. He was testing humanity's worth. And Ryan, despite the odds, was ready to face the test head-on. "I'm not here to prove anything to you," Ryan said, his voice steady. "But I'll show you exactly what a human can do." The tension in the air was palpable as the duel was set in motion. The commander signaled his troops, and before Ryan could even react, they activated their cloaking devices. The aliens seemed to vanish, their silhouettes flickering and blending with the dense foliage of the jungle. Ryan's eyes sharpened, his instincts kicking in. He wasn't intimidated. He had survived in this environment longer than any of them could imagine. Ryan's hand gently ran along the predator's back. A silent command passed between them. The beast growled softly, its eyes scanning the surroundings with a focus that no human could match. Ryan didn't need to see the aliens to know they were there. He could hear the faint hum of their cloaking technology, the slight rustle of the leaves as they moved in for the attack. Then, without warning, one of the aliens lunged from the shadows, a blur of motion aimed directly at Ryan. The predator reacted instantly, its massive form moving with surprising speed, slamming into the alien with the force of a freight train. The alien was sent flying backward, its cloaking device malfunctioning for a moment before it vanished again, reactivating its tech to recover. Ryan took advantage of the momentary disruption. He didn't stand still, waiting for his opponent to come to him. Instead, he moved swiftly, dodging behind a large tree. The jungle was his battlefield, and the alien's technology was a disadvantage here. He had learned to use every shadow, every piece of terrain to his advantage. Laser blasts pierced the air, lighting up the jungle in bright, unnatural colors. The aliens were relentless, firing in every direction as they tried to pinpoint Ryan's location. But Ryan had already anticipated their moves. He knew they would rely on their superior weapons and cloaking technology to disorient him, but he also knew how to outthink them. As the aliens regrouped, Ryan moved quickly, using the dense foliage to cover his movements. The predator stayed by his side, watching his every move. Ryan had taught it to move silently, to wait for his signal before springing into action. Now, they were a perfect team, using the environment to stay hidden and strike when the aliens least expected it. Suddenly, another alien appeared from the left, but Ryan was ready. He triggered a trap he had set earlier, an explosive device hidden in the undergrowth. The blast sent the alien tumbling backward, its cloaking device flickering out of existence. The explosion was deafening, but Ryan didn't wait to see the result. He was already moving again, circling back around to the other side of the battlefield. The predator leaped into action once more, its enormous jaws snapping shut inches from another alien soldier. This time, it was the predator's sheer strength and agility that gave it the upper hand. It tore through the alien's defense with ease, leaving the soldier disoriented and vulnerable. Ryan wasn't far behind, using the moment of weakness to strike with precision, taking down the alien with a quick, calculated move. But even as the battle raged on, Ryan knew that the true test wasn't just about brute strength. It was about outthinking the enemy. The aliens may have advanced technology, but Ryan had something they didn't: the ability to adapt, to think on his feet, and to use everything around him to his advantage. As the battle continued, Ryan could feel the tide beginning to turn. The aliens' cloaking devices, once an advantage, were now their downfall. Their reliance on technology had made them predictable. They were used to overwhelming their enemies with superior weapons and tactics, but they hadn't counted on Ryan's ingenuity and the bond he shared with his predator. The fight was fast-paced, a blur of motion and flashing lights. The jungle seemed to come alive with each explosion and each clash between human and alien. Laser beams cut through the air, and the sound of metal meeting flesh echoed in the distance. But in the midst of it all, Ryan remained focused. His mind raced, analyzing every movement, every piece of technology, every opportunity to strike. One by one, the aliens began to falter. Their cloaking devices were damaged, their technology failing them as Ryan's guerrilla tactics turned their own weapons against them. Each alien soldier who tried to engage him found themselves outmatched, their sophisticated technology no match for the raw power of Ryan's strategy and the savage strength of the apex predator. The alien commander watched from a distance, his face a mixture of disbelief and frustration. He had underestimated Ryan. He had assumed that the superior technology of the aliens would be enough to crush the human, but he had been wrong. Ryan was proving that strength wasn't just about weapons or technology. It was about adaptability, survival, and knowing when to strike. Ryan's heart pounded as he circled the battlefield, his movements precise and calculated. He had proven his point, but the fight wasn't over yet. The aliens might still have a few tricks up their sleeves, but Ryan wasn't about to let them get the better of him. He would finish this fight, once and for all, and show them exactly what humanity was capable of. As the dust settled, it was clear Ryan and his predator had turned the tide of the battle. The aliens, once so confident in their technology, were now on the defensive. And with every step Ryan took, they realized that their superiority was a fleeting illusion, shattered by a single human and his relentless will to survive. The battle had escalated beyond anything Ryan had anticipated. With the first wave of aliens defeated, there had been no time to rest, no time to savor victory. Before they could regroup, a second wave descended from the sky. The roar of their spacecraft echoed through the jungle, a chilling reminder that the odds were stacked against them. Ryan's heart sank as he looked around, seeing his fellow soldiers scrambling to take up defensive positions. The air was thick with smoke from the explosions, and the ground trembled beneath their feet as the new wave of aliens landed. This time, they were more prepared, better organized and armed with even more advanced weaponry. The cloaking devices were back online, making the aliens nearly invisible in the dense foliage, and the laser fire started to rain down from every direction. Ryan and his apex predator wasted no time jumping back into the fight. The creature was fast and brutal, tearing through the alien ranks with the fury of a beast that had been taught to survive. But the number of enemies was overwhelming, and soon the tide began to turn against them. The humans were outnumbered, and the aliens' superior technology made them a dangerous opponent. Ryan could hear the sound of his comrades' weapons firing, and the deafening blasts as explosions rocked the jungle. But through it all, his focus remained on the battle, determined to keep fighting. Suddenly, a loud shout rang out across the battlefield. Ryan's eyes widened as he saw Bonner, one of his closest friends and fellow soldiers, stumble backward, his chest pierced by a plasma bolt. Bonner fell to the ground, his body crumpling like a rag doll. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. Ryan's mind raced, but his body didn't respond immediately. His friend, his brother in arms, was gone. Bonner had been by his side since the beginning, through every mission, every skirmish. They had fought together, laughed together, and shared the burden of war. Now, Bonner was gone, his life snuffed out in an instant by the very enemies they had been fighting to destroy. The loss hit Ryan like a freight train. His body felt cold, and his heart ached in a way he couldn't describe. The bond they had was more than just camaraderie. It was friendship. It was trust. And now it was broken. Ryan's mind snapped back to reality, the pain of the loss fueling his rage. He couldn't let Bonner's death be in vain. He couldn't let his friend's sacrifice go unnoticed. The emotional weight of the moment pushed all other thoughts from his mind. He was no longer fighting for survival alone. He was fighting for justice, for revenge. Bonner's death wasn't just a tragic loss, it was a catalyst. It ignited a fire within Ryan, one that would burn until the final battle was won. His grip on his weapon tightened, and without another thought, he charged forward, the apex predator at his side. His movements were no longer calculated or careful. They were driven by raw emotion, fueled by a sense of loss that made him more dangerous than ever. The alien forces had taken something irreplaceable from him, and now they would pay the price. The predator howled as it tore through another alien soldier, its massive claws slashing with precision. Ryan moved in sync with the creature, his every action fueled by a desire for vengeance. The jungle around them seemed to come alive with the chaos of battle. The sound of laser fire, the roar of the predator, and the shouts of his fellow soldiers created a symphony of violence that filled Ryan's ears. But through all the noise and carnage, Ryan could hear one thing: Bonner's voice. He could hear his friend's laughter, his jokes, the way he had always been there to lift Ryan's spirits when things seemed darkest. That voice, now silenced forever, pushed Ryan forward. He fought with everything he had, not just for himself but for Bonner, for the fallen comrade who would never get to see the end of this war. As the seconds stretched into minutes, the battle became a blur of motion. Ryan's mind raced as he moved through the battlefield, using his knowledge of the terrain to outmaneuver the aliens. The predator was still at his side, tearing through the enemy forces, but it was Ryan who had become the real weapon. His grief had transformed into a weapon as powerful as any laser or advanced technology. The alien commander, witnessing the ferocity of Ryan's assault, grew more and more agitated. He had seen many warriors before, but none had fought with such raw emotion, such unbridled intensity. Ryan's resolve was unshakable, and the commander began to realize that this human was no ordinary soldier. He wasn't fighting just to survive. He was fighting to avenge the fallen, to honor the sacrifices of those who had fought by his side. With every step, Ryan's anger pushed him forward. His heart still ached with the loss of Bonner, but that pain had become fuel for his rage. Each alien he took down was one more step toward justice. The battle had become personal, and Ryan wasn't going to stop until every last alien who had come to this planet knew the price of their arrogance. In the distance, the sound of reinforcements could be heard. The alien commander had called for more troops. But Ryan wasn't backing down. He couldn't. Not when his friend's death hung heavy on his shoulders. Not when the stakes had become so much higher than just survival. The predator continued its relentless assault, its savage strength taking down alien after alien. But it was clear that the battle was far from over. More aliens poured in, their weapons lighting up the jungle in flashes of bright light. But Ryan's fury burned brighter than any laser. He fought like a man possessed, each strike more vicious than the last, each alien that fell a reminder of what they had taken from him. Ryan's heart was heavy, the weight of his grief anchoring him to the battlefield. But in the midst of the chaos, one thing was certain: he would not let Bonner's death be in vain. The fight for justice had just begun, and Ryan was ready to see it through to the end. The jungle was in chaos. The battle had raged for hours, and the humans, though outnumbered, had fought with every ounce of strength and determination they had. But the aliens were not finished. In a last-ditch effort to end the conflict once and for all, the alien commander made a decision that would change everything. A signal was sent out, and within moments, the sky above the jungle darkened as alien warships descended. They unleashed a full-scale orbital bombardment, the intense heat of their weapons lighting up the sky as they rained destruction down on the jungle below. Ryan's heart raced as the ground shook beneath him. He could hear the roar of the explosions, the blasts so powerful they could be felt in his bones. Trees were torn apart, and the once beautiful jungle was turned into a hellscape of fire and destruction. The aliens, confident in their superior firepower, thought that this would be the end. They believed that nothing could survive the bombardment. But Ryan wasn't just any soldier. And this wasn't just any fight. He wasn't about to let everything they had fought for be reduced to ashes. The apex predator growled beside him, sensing its bond with Ryan stronger than ever. They had faced death together before, and they were ready to do it again. Ryan had already anticipated this move. He had been preparing for it ever since the aliens started to show their true strength. Back at the wreckage of a downed alien ship, he had found something that would give them a fighting chance: cloaking technology. The aliens had no idea that Ryan had managed to salvage the device. The technology was still rough, but it was enough to hide them from the bombardment and give them the opportunity to strike back. With the Predator at his side, Ryan activated the cloaking device. For a moment, everything went quiet. The world around him vanished as he and the creature became invisible to the alien forces above. It was a small victory, but it was enough. They had bought themselves some time. Ryan's mind raced as he formulated a plan. He had to strike quickly. They couldn't allow the aliens to recover from their attack. His heart was still heavy with the loss of Bonner, and he wasn't about to let that loss be in vain. He had to stop the aliens once and for all. The battle was far from over, but Ryan had a renewed sense of purpose. He wasn't just fighting to survive anymore. He was fighting to win. The Predator moved with lightning speed, its massive form darting through the jungle, its claws tearing into the alien forces. Every movement was a calculated strike, every attack an embodiment of the creature's primal power. The aliens, once so sure of their victory, were now beginning to panic. They couldn't understand how the humans had survived the bombardment, and they couldn't comprehend the strength and ferocity of the Predator. Ryan, meanwhile, was already working to disable the alien ships. He had studied their technology for days, analyzing every detail, every weakness. He knew their patterns, their systems, and he had found a way to exploit them. With the cloaking technology still active, Ryan was able to move undetected through the battlefield, taking down alien ships one by one. He didn't need to engage them in direct combat. Instead, he used his knowledge of their systems to sabotage their weapons and communication systems. The alien ships, once a symbol of dominance, were now falling apart from the inside. Ryan's quick thinking and expert strategy were turning the tide of the battle. The aliens were no longer in control. As explosions continued to rock the jungle, the tide of the battle shifted. The aliens, who had once believed their victory was certain, now found themselves on the defensive. The humans, using everything they had learned about their enemies, were fighting back with a level of coordination and strategy the aliens hadn't anticipated. Ryan and the apex predator were a perfect team, one relying on brute strength and primal instinct, the other on quick thinking and tactical brilliance. The intensity of the battle reached a fever pitch. The jungle was a war zone, with debris flying everywhere as ships fell from the sky, their hulls bursting into flames. Ryan could feel the adrenaline coursing through his veins. This was it. This was the moment they had been fighting for. In the midst of the chaos, Ryan caught sight of the alien commander. The same commander who had once been so confident in his victory was now scrambling to regain control. The commander's ship, one of the largest in the fleet, was flanked by several smaller craft, all firing relentlessly at the humans. But Ryan could see the cracks beginning to form. The alien fleet was falling apart. Ryan's eyes locked onto the commander's ship. He knew this was his chance. With the cloaking device still active, he and the Predator could make a direct assault on the command ship. But they had to act quickly. Time was running out. Ryan signaled to the Predator, and together they made their move, weaving through the remaining alien forces. The Predator was a blur of motion, its sharp claws cutting down anything that got in its way. Ryan, ever the strategist, used the terrain to his advantage, leading the way to the alien ship. They moved silently, undetected by the remaining alien forces. The chaos around them only helped hide their presence. As they reached the command ship, Ryan knew this would be the final push. With a single, decisive strike, they could end the battle and turn the tide in favor of humanity. Ryan disabled the ship's shields, his knowledge of the alien technology giving him the edge. The Predator leaped onto the ship's hull, using its massive strength to rip open a hole. Inside, Ryan and the Predator fought with everything they had. The alien crew, caught off guard by the sudden assault, struggled to mount a defense, but it was too late. Ryan's expert tactics, combined with the Predator's ferocity, proved unstoppable. As the final alien forces fell, Ryan stood victorious. The battle was won. The jungle, once a place of death and destruction, was now silent. The remaining alien ships began to retreat, their forces shattered and their will broken. Ryan, breathing heavily from the intense battle, felt a sense of relief wash over him. It was over. They had won. The humans, once the underdogs in this fight, had come out on top. The alien threat had been defeated, and Ryan knew that this victory would be remembered for years to come. But even in the silence of the jungle, he couldn't forget the price they had paid. Bonner was gone, and many others had fallen. But they had succeeded, and that was a victory worth fighting for. The jungle was eerily silent, the calm only broken by the distant rumble of the last few alien warships retreating into the sky. The final showdown had come to a close, but it wasn't over yet. Ryan, his face battered and covered in the grime of battle, stood at the edge of the jungle, watching the smoke rise from the remnants of the alien fleet. The victory was theirs, but the fight wasn't complete until he faced the one remaining threat, the alien commander. The same leader who had believed humanity was weak, whose arrogance had led to countless deaths and near destruction. Now, it was time for one last fight, a fight to prove not just their survival, but their strength. The alien commander, a towering figure draped in advanced armor, stood before Ryan, looking down at him with contempt. His eyes, cold and unfeeling, studied the human soldier. The commander had seen firsthand what Ryan and his allies were capable of, but he still believed the aliens' technology would be enough to crush this insignificant human. This time, though, the odds were different. Ryan wasn't alone. The Predator, his companion through thick and thin, stood by his side, ready to fight. The two had become a force, an unstoppable combination of human ingenuity and primal strength. The commander could sense the unity between them, but he was determined to prove his superiority. Ryan's eyes narrowed as he studied the commander's every movement. This battle was more than just physical. It was a clash of ideals. The aliens represented cold, calculated technology, while humanity embodied raw willpower, resourcefulness, and unity. Ryan had learned that in the heart of a battle, it wasn't just the tools you had. It was the heart that fought with them. And right now, he felt that heart beating strong within him. The fight began. The alien commander unleashed a barrage of energy blasts from his weapon, but Ryan was ready. He dodged and moved swiftly, his instincts guiding him with the precision of a predator. The jungle around them seemed to fade away as the two warriors clashed. The aliens' high-tech weapons and armor were formidable, but they were nothing compared to Ryan's resilience and the strength of the apex predator by his side. The creature leaped forward with terrifying speed, slashing through the air with its claws, its primal fury matching Ryan's fierce determination. Ryan's mind raced as he used every bit of knowledge he had gathered about the alien forces. He had studied their technology, analyzed their weaknesses, and now he used it to his advantage. The commander's weaponry was powerful, but it wasn't invincible. The more Ryan dodged, the more the commander's strikes grew desperate, revealing flaws in the technology. The predator continued to circle, waiting for the right moment to strike, while Ryan stayed focused, using his human ingenuity to outmaneuver the alien leader. The alien commander, for all his power and technology, couldn't match the unity and spirit of the humans. Ryan's movements were a dance of precision, every strike a testament to human will. The predator's ferocity kept the commander on the defensive, its claws slashing at the alien's defenses. Slowly, but surely, the commander began to falter. The final blow came when Ryan spotted a weak point in the alien's armor. With a swift move, he launched himself forward, using all his strength to land a crushing blow to the commander's chest. The commander staggered back, his breath ragged, his weapon now useless in his hands. Ryan, breathing heavily, knew that this was it. The alien commander was done. With one last, powerful push, Ryan struck, and the alien commander collapsed to the ground. The jungle fell silent, the battle won. Ryan stood tall, his body battered but his spirit unbroken. The predator stood by his side, just as exhausted, but no less victorious. Together, they had defeated the invincible. As the alien commander lay defeated, Ryan turned his gaze to the remaining aliens who had watched the battle unfold from the sidelines. They were no longer confident. Their arrogance had been shattered. The surviving alien forces, who had once believed humanity to be insignificant, were now retreating in fear. They had learned a harsh lesson, that humanity, despite being young in the grand scheme of the galaxy, was not to be underestimated. Ryan took a deep breath, standing tall among the wreckage of the battle. His voice, calm but filled with authority, rang out across the jungle. Humanity is not weak. We fight with everything we have. We are not bound by your technology, your calculations, or your superiority. We fight with our hearts, and we survive by our will. His words echoed across the jungle, carried by the winds, a message to the galaxy. The aliens had underestimated them, but they would never make that mistake again. Humanity had shown that they could not only survive but thrive, even against overwhelming odds. And now, the galaxy would know their name. The surviving alien forces, humbled and broken, had no choice but to retreat. They realized their mistake in underestimating the humans, and they departed the planet, leaving Earth to rise as a new powerful force in the galaxy. It wasn't just a victory of survival. It was a victory for humanity's spirit. Earth, once seen as a backwater planet, had just earned its place among the stars. Ryan and the apex predator stood victorious, a symbol of everything humanity had endured and overcome. They were more than just soldiers. They were the embodiment of human strength, resilience, and the will to survive. The predator, once a terrifying creature, was now a companion in the fight for survival. Together, they had shown that no matter how advanced an enemy's technology was, there was something far stronger that couldn't be beaten: the will to survive. The galaxy would never forget the lesson that Earth had taught them. Humanity was no longer a planet to be ignored. It was a force to be reckoned with, and no one would dare challenge their will again. The battle was over, but the message was clear. Humanity had won, and their future was bright. Ryan, standing victorious in the jungle with his loyal predator at his side, looked up at the stars. He knew that this was just the beginning. The galaxy had seen the strength of humanity, and Earth had earned its place in the cosmos. From this moment on, they would be a force no one could ignore.